Welcome. You are?
Yes, my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal product manager in the Microsoft 365 areas. I guess we go through the full intro.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been working in Microsoft now for 17 years. 17, not 70, 17. I started as a consultant in Microsoft Finland and then been working in Redmond organization now for 10 years. A bit of an exceptional person from that perspective. I work in Redmond organization. My team is there. My colleagues are Redmond, but I actually work from Finland. So my time zone difference is pretty big, which means that I work in nighttime. And during daytime, I have a bit more flexibility. This is pretty early for me, actually. So.
Yeah. That's why you're providing the session now, because later it would have been worse
Yes.
for you. And yes, I'm Paolo. I'm a solution architect working in a company of my own called pscs.com. And together, I'm just the kind host for this guy. So I will just try to help him to deliver his session because he needs help. So, like always, thank you to all of our sponsors for making it possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And remember to visit all of the sponsors in the expo area. And this will be more like a Q&A session. I mean, I will ask some questions to Vesa, he will answer, and if he will not answer what we are looking for, I will answer again and again, or ask again,
Sure.
again. So, first of all, well, you already said something about yourself. You want to say more? Who are you,
And I
Vesa?
guess we are taking questions from the audience as
Yeah,
well,
we're taking
if
questions
needed.
for the audience
Cool.
as well. Yeah.
So once again, just a recap. So I work on the Microsoft 365 Extensibility. That's my day job, and also community and open source. So basically, working closely with, I am in the engineering in the Redmond organization. I'm working closely with SharePoint Framework, Microsoft Teams, Teams AI SDK, Copilot Extensibility, Microsoft Graph, open source, and all of that stuff. So the idea of this talk is, like Paolo was saying, is just to have a relaxed discussion, go through some of the directions where we're heading as a Microsoft from our investment perspective. And also, if you have any questions related on, hey, we're seeing that Microsoft is saying you should only do this, not that. Is that true or false? I can have my opinions on that. I'm not from marketing. I don't have any sales quotas. So I'm from engineering. So I can be pretty open on discussion. Hopefully that makes sense.
Do you mean that you will say the truth?
Yes, that's my...
Okay, just to be sure. Okay. So, let's start. Maybe the clicker is not willing to help, so let me go closer. And let's start with the video.
Actually, can you go one back before we go to the video?
Copilot Studio.
So it always happens with
Yes.
Vesa,
So quick intro on this one. So obviously we had the Microsoft build happening 2 to 3 weeks ago. And again, I'm from the OneDrive SharePoint organization, from an organizational perspective. But every single organization is Microsoft is now building Copilot extensibility and Copilots because the AI is a really, really, really big thing. So especially in our organization, we are tasked to simplify how we do Copilots and make sure that every single end user can actually create a Copilot with a click of a mouse. So really simplifying the things and making sure that anybody can actually do Copilots. Of course, if you need to do complex stuff, if you need to do more intelligent stuff, you can always take advantage of Azure OpenAI, all of those integration scenarios. So we wanted to kind of start a quick kind of recap on those announcements. And this is a video with the audio. It's a marketing video, but it explains some of the investment areas where we are investing in OneDrive SharePoint related on Copilot, and then we can elaborate a bit more what that means in practice.
It's not just Microsoft Copilot that can be extended with Copilot Studio. Let's look at another example of how you can extend a Copilot within SharePoint. This SharePoint site has all the event details for a major event, ReliCon 2024. The attendees can quickly get information from the Copilot. However, employees looking for food vendor information couldn't get answers from the Copilot due to the information not being available on SharePoint. To fix it, the Copilot can easily be customized via Copilot Studio to connect to external sources. With a simple click, the user is now able to continue editing their Copilot in Copilot Studio's full authoring experience. ReliCon's catering vendor information is available as records in Dataverse. From Copilot Studio, it can easily be added as additional knowledge sources. And to give attendees even more menu details, they can also add the catering vendor's public website as another knowledge source. This way, the Copilot can answer any additional meal questions from the attendees. Providing information is great, but the Copilot can take it further by allowing attendees to submit their meal choices ahead of the event. This can be easily done by adding an action in Copilot Studio. In this case, the action updates employees' meal choice as part of the attendee records in Dataverse. There you have it. Now the Copilot will take the action automatically without needing additional configuration. When they're satisfied with the Copilot's additional capabilities, they can easily publish their changes to become available on the Relicon 2024 SharePoint site. Now employees can get all the event information they need when they chat with the Relicon 2024 Copilot in SharePoint. With the enhancement from Copilot Studio, they can easily get catering vendor info and ask follow-up questions on the meal menu from sources outside of SharePoint. When they're ready, the Copilot can use actions to collect their meal choice conversationally before attending Relicon 2024. With Microsoft Copilot Studio, the options to extend are limitless. You can extend Copilot for Sales, Copilot for Service, Copilot for Insights, Viva, Copilot in Power Apps, Copilot for Finance, and more.
So that was a lot to actually talk about from a Copilot extensibility perspective. We're going to actually show a few more stories as part of the deck, and of course, if there's any questions, we can always take them. But first of all, every single SharePoint site will have by default a Copilot. Starting pretty soon. And that means that any single document within a SharePoint site is under a Copilot by default. And then on top of that, we can actually start expanding that Copilot, which is at the SharePoint site, using the Copilot Studio, which we can then further enhance to integrate on Dataverse and all of that. So there's a lot of interesting opportunities there. Now, the Copilot Studio obviously isn't the only option to do development and custom development in 365. That's not the intention in here. That's more on the most recent investment areas where we're pushing from a Microsoft perspective. All of the existing stuff still remains. SharePoint Framework, absolutely. Microsoft Teams Toolkit for Teams Extensibility still remains. Microsoft Graph still remains, even though it seems to be that we're only pushing Copilot.
So now you make me feel better, because my question was exactly this one. I mean, as a developer, I usually write code on a daily basis. I know you don't because you are a PM, but, but whenever I write code, I think nowadays everything has to be Copilot related, which is fine, and has to be low code and not pro code. At least that's how it looks, okay?
Yep.
So as a developer, I would really love to see that there is still some room for developing solutions and not just for configuring or designing the solutions in tools like Copilot Studio or the Power Platform, which I love and which I use. But also from a developer standpoint, it is nice to know that there is still something that we can do as developers, and that's not the end of the developer era, let me say.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
talking about that, as a developer, I use SharePoint Framework. You are a PM of the SharePoint Framework area. So what are the upcoming news in the SharePoint Framework product?
Yeah, so for those who are not super familiar with what is an SPFX, that means SharePoint Framework, because we don't know the skill set of the room. But SharePoint Framework is something what you can use to extend SharePoint, Microsoft Viva, Microsoft Teams, and so on. And it's incredibly popular. So it has tens and tens of millions of monthly active users for extensibility, which have been built using SPFX. Released originally in 2017, and we've been releasing, I think, 19 bigger versions on it, and many more additional smaller versions. And that's not going to go away. So what you see now within the 12 months or 18 months. 18 months ago, nobody actually have really heard about OpenAI. Some of you might have, but 18 months ago, we didn't yet have the ChatGPT. ChatGPT was released roughly 18 months ago. And within that 18-month cycle, every single discussion have moved into focus on AI. Again, that doesn't mean that the old extensibility models are going to go away. Sooner or later, we'll see this kind of a pendulum to move a bit back on the realism, and then coming back on. It's always a movement between the focus areas. Whenever we introduce something which is so fundamental, like the AI integration in the industry, we go all in, and then we flip a bit back on the reality, and then we start integrating the AI directly within a product. So SPFX will be an extensibility model for Copilot chats as well in the future. There is a quick demo coming up on that one in the slides today as well, if there's no other questions. But it will continue to be a model where people can trust and build their experiences within Microsoft 365.
And what I really love about SharePoint Framework is that little by little it is becoming the extensibility platform or framework for most of the workloads that we have in Microsoft 365. So as a SharePoint Framework developer, I would love to being able to extend everything with SharePoint Framework just to have a return of investment, because I have knowledge in that area and I would love to see it growing and growing. So hopefully it will happen. Right?
That is the intention, absolutely. Investments are not going to go away. Yes. So, and again, if we think about before the AI era, we pushed heavily as a Microsoft, we pushed heavily Power Platform. Right now, we're still pushing Power Platform heavily. This is once again those pendulum swings. We always go low code, no code, pro code, and then another direction, another direction. I've been long enough in Microsoft to see how this moves. It's never a never-ending story. So as we choose to push, for example, Power Platform for 3 to 4 to 5 years, at certain moment at a time, the market is full, and everybody is using that already. And then we come up with something new, and then we push on that one. So, and that's how the Microsoft always works. We come up with something new, which is the chosen one, so to say. Don't quote me on that on Twitter, but still. But that's how the company actually works. We need to come up with something new because Microsoft also needs to make money. It's just a money-making machine as well.
And so, talking about Copilot and Copilot everywhere, one question that I have for you, and most likely also the people in the audience want to get an answer about, is what is the role of Copilot in the fields of SharePoint and SharePoint Framework? Because now, we already said, I think, 40, 50 times Copilot in this session. I think that's enough.
We have. So on this particular question, because we talk about Copilot and SPFX, can we actually watch there's 4 videos which should be muted, so I can actually explain what we're seeing in here. First of all, this is the most simplistic way to create a Copilot, where now it starts. This will be available pretty soon. You click Create a Copilot, select the files you want, you click Create a Copilot. And voila, you will actually have your own Copilot, which you can start by using. And that Copilot have access to the semantic index. It have access on the data, what the files are having. And you can further modify that. So in here, we selected 3 files from a document library, clicked Create a Copilot. We give it a name. We can, of course, modify the Copilot using an icons, but based on however we want to do the branding on that one. But it's good to have a dedicated images and titles and names, obviously, for the files. We can also select what are the sources just by clicking in the UI in a wizard. Do I need to add an additional document from another site as part of this Copilot? And this makes it incredibly easy for anybody, information worker, end user even, to create their own Copilot, for example, files within their OneDrive. And then they can modify providing guidance and some starter prompts. Starter prompts are the ones which are visible when you open up the Copilot. And we're going to see that in a second. So as examples on the right side on what you would be able to ask about those files within this Copilot. And then that's it, technically. So what we did here is something which pretty recently required Azure OpenAI usage of a beta endpoint or beta connectors for SharePoint and complexity. Now we did it with 5 clicks within SharePoint, and we have a Copilot against the files using semantic index, having all of the access points and power of the Copilot directly within their usage. So super simplified, making sure that everybody can use and create their Copilots as easy as possible just by using SharePoint.
Is this something that is already available or in preview? So
this is currently in private preview. So there's in our build session, we provided a URL, which unfortunately we don't actually have it in a deck in here, where you can actually sign up to the private preview to get it in your tenant. It is pretty early. We're testing this internally in Microsoft right now, but it's actually, I've tested that already. A lot of my archived documents and all of that, I can actually then go and ask from the Copilot, when did Paolo do a presentation in our community call? And it will actually reply me based on the information it has access. Really, really convenient thing. This also will mean that there was going to be thousands and thousands of Copilots potentially within a single tenant. So it changes the dynamics of the Copilots completely, as end users can actually create Copilots. So it's not just necessarily an IT requirement. IT can still use Copilots and they can provide more extensibility on them. But it's kind of a, what's the right term? It makes the Copilots available for everybody within the Microsoft 365.
And let me do some cross-marketing in the upcoming session that I will have, which is about Copilot extensibility. We can eventually see what you can do right now while waiting for this feature to be released, because using Copilot Studio, you can already create your own Copilot based on your documents in SharePoint Online. Of course, it will not be as smooth as this one is, because this will be fully integrated, but at least you can do something while waiting for, okay?
Can we go to the following video?
Yeah,
so let's continue this one. So now we have the delivery drone Copilot available. We created that based on those 4 files in here. You actually might have noticed that it created a Copilot file. And what it means is that I can actually share this Copilot super easily with any other colleague. So I can just take a link and share that with, in this case, with Mona Kane. In a chat and say, hey Mona, all of the files related on HR information or our specifics or our products is in here. Have a look on and use the Copilot to collect the information for your whatever project or business case. So making it again super easy for anybody to access that information within their permissions which they have. So super, super convenient way.
And we were chatting about this functionality just a few days ago and making some thought about it, and the fact that it creates a file. And mainly the reason why it creates a file is because then you can reuse the sharing UI and the sharing experience, which is exactly the same for everything else in Microsoft 365. So next video?
Yep,
right?
Next video. I think this is the 3rd video on the same series. And then, of course, we have, as we have the Copilot, we actually saw this one in the intro video, which was more a marketing thing. The Copilot itself can be then, of course, modified and customized based on your requirement. And more importantly, I think we'll get there in the video in a second. We can also move and modify and start modifying this directly within the Copilot Studio. So what we're basically doing here is that you are able to create a Copilot for your files or for your sites just by click a few clicks in the mouse. And then you have the baseline setup. And then if needed, you can just extend that within the Copilot Studio, making it super, super easy to start using the capabilities. This seems to be actually exactly pretty much the same video what we saw on the marketing section.
But I'm a developer, Vesa, you know.
Yes, so you're a developer. So this is clicking. This is Copilot Studio, which is not really a development. That's low code, I guess is the right term. And of course, that could integrate to an APIs and all of that. But if you have been using a SharePoint framework, I think the next video will be the most interesting one for anybody who's actually pro developer. So can we go to the? Yeah. We can. Oh, here we go. So. If you are a SharePoint Framework developer, wouldn't it be cool that your SharePoint Framework skills and investments using the website development would be available in the Copilot? And that's where we're heading as well. So all of those SPFX cards, which we have potentially created for Viva Connection, are intended to be also working within the Copilot chat. And in this case, we're using an example. This is actually Luca Pandinelli, one of my good colleagues. I've been working with him for way too long, from Italy, actually, original consultant in here. But as an example, he's showing this in the demo where you're asking a question that, can I take a day off because avoiding a burnout? And the Copilot is smart enough to understand that, oh, wait a minute, in your tenant, you have actually deployed well-being.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's a crazy, awesome timing.
You should never use your phone to project. Oh, Jesus, shut up. Okay. D&D, okay? Yes. Sorry about that. It was nice, okay. Right?
But again, so if there is an SPFX card deployed on the tenant, built using website development tooling, TypeScript and React and all of that, those cards can be the UX within the Copilot chat. And what it means is that we're no longer talking about the fact that the end user needs to write the commands or do the commands by writing text. We can show cards which behind of the scenes are actually operations with the Copilot or together with Copilot or the UX directly within a chat. And that's incredibly powerful because then we can actually hit any LOB system behind of the scenes. In this case, we can access my payslip information if I'm asking that from the Copilot. Copilot is smart enough to show my payslip card, and then I can request the information about, okay, so what's my salary for this month. So rather than having that discussion only and purely in text format, we can now start introducing much more complexity with SPFX. And SPFX provides additional layer on top of the adaptive cards because SPFX has the orchestration of hitting multiple APIs. And that's actually really, really cool as a capability.
Yeah, because as a developer, I can completely reuse my knowledge and my code base and make it available in Copilot, basically for free.
Yes.
Right. Cool, really cool from a developer perspective. I don't know if you love it, but I do. So.
At least we have one happy
yeah, at least I'm
audience.
one. Yeah. So now the point is wonderful. I can develop stuff with SharePoint Framework. I can extend the whole Microsoft 365 platform. Soon I will be able to extend Copilot with SharePoint Framework, which is amazing. But I'm a developer. And in order to use Copilot, looks like I need a license. And in order to use Microsoft 365, looks like I need a license. But I also know that there used to be the developer tenants a while ago. Now there are some kind of issues. Can you explain us a little bit more about what's going on with the developer tenants and what we can do as developers if we want to develop solutions?
Before we go there, how many of you are actually using developer tenants? Just out of curiosity. Good, people are aware on the discussion point what we're having here. That's actually a really good sign. So for many years, we provided free developer tenants for all of the developers. And basic idea was there that we want to make it sure that developers can easily start creating extensibility for Microsoft 365 just by providing their email, I think, was the only thing what was required. And then all of a sudden we started requiring a phone number, and then all of a sudden we actually closed the program or put it in pause. And what happened behind the scenes is part of the security challenges what you've seen in the industry. So as we were providing these tenants freely for our developers, some people realized that, well, wait a minute, free tenants. First of all, I can use these tenants for business usage. And yes, we had an instrumentation in place which basically declined some of that stuff. But then they realized that, well, I can start using these tenants as an attack vector towards Microsoft and other customers. And they were relatively clever on trying to figure out how to do things. And we were unable to technically identify who they are because the only identification was the email address, which they had used to register to get the tenant. So that basically comes to be a liability and legal challenge for Microsoft, and that was the root cause why the developer tenant, well, the developer program was put on pause. Any single existing developer tenant will renew automatically as long as you use it still properly for developer usage, but you cannot currently get new developer tenants unless you have a Visual Studio subscription, which is a pretty expensive pay. So, and that's a pretty big challenge for us. So we seriously want to give everybody a free developer environment, but we can't because of bad apples. So bad people would use that in the wrong way. So right now, the only real option is to pay $6 per month and order and subscribe to a real Microsoft 365 tenant. So that's not a massive cost. It's a $6 per month. That's $72 in a year. But there is that's the cheapest E3 tenant, and it's a normal tenant. So you can use that tenant any way you want, and it will never expire, which is a good thing. So it's better than the developer tenant. And again, that's $6 per month. Now, we still want to figure out if we are able to provide a free developer tenant. So most likely that's not an option, because the only way we can identify the person who is subscribing to the developer program is by asking them to provide us credit card on something which we can identify the person. So there most likely is going to be a small fee as part of the developer tenants in the future as well. And then if that's the case, and again, I cannot say exactly where we are heading in the future, but if that's the case, then would it make sense to pay $72 in a year to get a tenant which will never expire and it will function your developer tenant for this moment forward? Answer is yes. $72 in a year is not a massive cost for any developer, which hopefully make
for any business.
For any business, yes, exactly, yeah. for creating solutions. But again, it's an unfortunate event, but we cannot provide currently free tenants because people are using that free option in the wrong way. Everybody suffers when some people can't behave.
True, so true. And at the same time, if I want to develop Copilot solutions, and as such I need to use Copilot on those developer tenants, do I need to buy a dedicated license for Copilot, or as a developer, there is something that I can do?
Yes. So first of all, I would say I'm how would I put this? I'm a relatively old school, long enough in Microsoft to see how things are evolving. Every single Copilot extensibility model is currently in preview. None of those extensibility models are yet GA'd. So yes, we can build Copilot extensibility, but it's all going to evolve. So if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, don't feel bad about it. It's okay. You have plenty of time to jump on the train in the future as well. Now, if you want to get access on the previous stuff and start testing out things, you can do that by subscribing to the paid tenant option, which is the $6 in a month. But then you have to pay the extra of $30 to get access on Copilot. So there is no free Copilot extensibility option, which is available from Microsoft. And that really comes again on those things. We from engineering, yes, it would be awesome if we would be able to do that. But it is actually incredibly expensive to run Copilot. So there's a massive cost behind the scenes, and we need to tackle that somehow. And currently there isn't an alternative option, unless your company, if you're an ISV company and you're part of the Microsoft 365 technical preview program, technical adoption program, I think is the right way to say that. But yeah, so the creating of adoption extensibility for Copilot is currently a bit of a challenge. That would mean that the minimum is $36 per month for a normal developer to be able to enable you to do that, which is, yeah.
Let me say, I run my own company, so I'm used to think about budgets and stuff like that, okay? I mean, if you are a developer, if you are developing business solutions for customers, well, it's about 400 euros every year. Come on, okay? I mean, if you can't afford 400 euros every year, ask yourself if it is the right market for you, okay? Sorry, I didn't want to be rude, but, okay? That's my point of view, at least.
Depends on a company, depends on a customer case, depends on is it an in-house developer, is it a invoice-based developer? There's many aspects on this discussion for sure. So.
Cool, but what if I want to become a developer who is also involved in the community? What is the community offering to me, and what is the Microsoft 365 developer community? Can you tell us something about that?
Absolutely.
You know something about the community?
Maybe I do. We do have a super active community on the Microsoft 365 community areas. I don't think we have URLs actually on the deck, unfortunately. But AKMS/community/home is a URL to get started. We have 1965 samples, for example, across Microsoft 365 extensibility. We have community calls happening every single week, at least 2 of them, typically. Today, within 11 minutes, we will have, or 21 minutes, we will have a community call happening as well, where we have more than 250 people joining all around the world to learn and share their learnings around how to build extensibility in Microsoft 365. And we do have our YouTube channel and all of that available from this one URL. So there's a lot of assets available. And a key point to understand here is that there's assets for you to take advantage, even though you would not have the time to contribute. It's okay. Not everybody has the opportunity of contributing. It might be that your time is too valuable and your company doesn't give you the opportunity to contribute back. But there's a lot of samples and guidance available for you to take advantage. There's free samples. The samples are MIT licensed, which basically means that you can take the sample, repackage that, sell it to somebody else, and make billions of money, hopefully. So there's a lot of assets for you and your company to take advantage around this effort. And that's been running now for quite a long time. And it's growing significantly all the time. So a lot of engagement, multiple
Something
areas.
like 10 years or so?
Yes, 10 years
like that,
this spring. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
We're getting old.
Yes, I guess we are. Unfortunately.
And what
now,
if someone
Paolo,
wants
I'm
to
just saying this. Any question from the audience on anything what we've gone through? You've been now jumping on the question. Anybody has any questions related on anything what we have not covered? Microsoft Graph, Microsoft Teams, extensibility, Copilot Studio. What's going to happen on X and Y and Z?
Don't be shy.
I think we're after lunch, and afternoon is always silent. But more than happy to answer any questions what you have in mind, or challenge. Why is Microsoft not getting my billion-dollar idea? Or I tried to do this and that doesn't work. I'm capable of answering those hard questions as well.
And you can even ask your question in Italian if you want. I can try to translate them in Bresciano first and then in English. So Bresciano is the language of my region, you know.
Sure.
Okay, one question there. The microphone is coming. So.
Oh, we do have microphone. Awesome.
So.
I'm just watching the clock because we only have 10 minutes. So you're asking too many questions.
I'm always demanding, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
All good.
Okay, my question is regarding the SharePoint integration with the Copilot. Is enabled by default in all SharePoint sites, or I need to enable something like administrative tenants?
Really good question. So the demo what we saw today, most likely, so this is still an engineering demo or engineering and marketing demo. So the business implications are not yet super clear. Most likely what will happen is that you will need to have the Copilot license within your company to be able to have that functioning. But when it's enabled and when you have those, then anybody can actually use and create as many of those as needed. So there's no, right now, I don't think there's a plans to disable that capability as an admin control thing. However, if you're asking that we should have an admin control and IT admin control events on there, that's something what other people are already saying as well. So you probably, is that the case? You want to have a control on who can do that?
No, for example, in our case, I don't have the control of the tenant. But I would like to know if, by design, if I have created a SharePoint site, SharePoint online site, this feature should be enabled by default.
That is absolutely 100% the intention. So currently, it's not yet available. It's in preview. Okay. But the intention is that every single SharePoint site, when you create the site, you will have a Copilot by default. And then you can create directly additional Copilots based on the files and selections and your configuration within the site.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other question? We still have a few minutes, so.
I think you had some questions.
Yeah, I had one,
else,
but my question was still related on the community. And was related to how can I become an active part of the community? Because we said before, we have been there for 10 years. Okay, but what if someone else wants to be together with us in the community? How they can contribute? First of all, is it possible to come to? I guess so.
Yes, so our community, this is so we're kind of doing this, our community work is community first. So this is not Microsoft owned thing. This is more on community owned thing. So from our perspective, and especially my perspective, and well, we have some our community leaders in the front row as well. It's not led by Microsoft. It's led by the community people, which will own it, even though Microsoft would walk away on it. And there's no plans for Microsoft to walk away on it. But it's community for community first, and Microsoft people are part of that community rather than dictating what happens in a community. That's kind of the mental mindset of the thing. And easiest way to get involved is just start contributing, being on the community calls, start contributing with samples, for example, and then getting a bit more closely involved within the open source projects which we have. And you could actually grow to be part of or you can easily get an MVP, well, easily, but you can get an MVP status, for example, with Microsoft, just by contributing on the open source and community assets. There's a lot of different perspectives, different areas where you can contribute, from documentation to individual samples across the different stack.
Yeah, just to make an example, you can create a sample, then you can demo the sample in a community call, and as such you become more visible than before. Then you might be invited to show your sample or your ideas in a community conference like this one, and little by little you can even become an MVP and be an active part of the community.
Absolutely.
Which is cool.
Absolutely.
We were 4 people 10 years ago, and now we are 50.
4 people. So
well,
and
2 at the beginning.
At
the very beginning,
so
2.
These are the coordinators. So I think we have more than 2,000 contributors.
Contributors, yeah.
And active community members. But then from a coordinator perspective, like Fabia and Luisa in the front row and you, I think we're in 45 right now, which are coordinating the work. But more than that, there's a lot of people like like other people in the audience as well who are contributing and providing samples to other people succeed within a community, which is super important because we learn from each other rather than Microsoft can always provide us guidance and input, but we learn from the real world scenarios what people are actually building, rather than what Microsoft in Redmond is thinking what you're building.
True, so true.
Guido, sorry.
Guido, yeah. So, any other question? Again, don't be shy. Or any feedback? Maybe you want to complain about something.
Complaining is completely fine. We have 5 minutes just on the front row.
5 minutes to complete with
If
Vesa.
you would have $1 billion budget for Microsoft, what would you want us to fix? What is broken? Unlimited money, but you can't spend it. It would be spent on Microsoft stuff. What would be the one thing which is the most annoying thing? Outlook, no? One?
Clippy, no.
Clippy, I want Clippy back.
Yeah.
The partner program. That's
that's
for
a very good feedback.
Yes, that's a good. Ruddy is from one of the partners and ISVs. Not sure how many ISVs and partners are in the audience, but there was a change related on the partner program rules, which are pushing more on the app source first. It was a Azure store site pushed chains on the partner program, which changed the dynamics quite significantly. And then that also meant that a lot of the existing Microsoft partners were unable to renew to be partners, even though, of course, there are partners, but the kind of the validation process was changed completely. Completely agree on that. That was a top-down decision from some new CVP on Azure side who wanted to change the ecosystem. Not sure how well that went. Maybe we'll flip it back soon.
We are waiting for that. Anything else? Any question? Again, any feedback? Or one there? Okay. If you want, you can wait for the microphone. Sorry.
I can always repeat the question as well.
But she's almost there. So.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Do you have any chance to have something like a unified user profile for all the platform?
Mm-hmm. Good question. So do we have a chance to do a unified user profile in all the platforms? So the intention is actually yes. But I cannot give you a timeline. So there's work being done, well, obviously in Redmond, but then there are teams in Norway and Sweden who are rethinking right now how would we have a unified user profile within the Entra ID. And that would be basically then the unified location for all of the different applications, and then the applications can also extend that. Historically, we've been kind of using the SharePoint user profile, but that's only for SharePoint. And that flexibility is not currently in the Entra ID side or in the Entra side and in those profiles. But there's slowly we are seeing progress on that one. It's been a really rocky road. I think already 5 years ago we talked about something related on this in build, and it never actually got properly funded. And then new priorities came, and then that was hit on the sand. And now it's again in discussions. But there is a team which is getting funded on that. And I don't know the timelines and how fast.
But now we have the right people in that team, so I'm really positive about the
There's good
changes.
people in that team.
Can I say that?
Yes, there's good people in that team
so.
who should be able to deliver as long as they get the funding.
Yeah.
So. Cool. Questions?
Any other question?
Yep, there was a...
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Based on the last comment you did, do you think that the Microsoft environment, such as Power Platform and other stuff, will implement better the security groups? Because at an entry-level administration panel, it's a hell, because you spend a lot of money, a lot of time to discuss with HR, to discuss with all the people, and put the right people in the right groups.
Yep.
And then you implement something new in Power Platform, something new in other stuff, and then it simply not work.
I've been around for too long, so I definitely know the problem. I would hope that we would get it sorted out, but this is one of those areas. We should have actually started this kind of a discussion a bit earlier. We're running out of time. But I would actually say that that the request, and we just run out of time, but I want to answer this. Request, what you're saying is 100% understandable, and it makes perfect sense. The challenge of doing those kind of changes, which does make sense, is more from a Microsoft internal perspective. It's always been watched on, will this make more money? And what you're asking is something which is basically fundamental. It should be override across all of the stack. Can we put that in the premium bucket? Well, no, we cannot, because that, if we would actually introduce that, that would be something which is for everybody. So unfortunately, those business and money decisions drive investments quite often in Microsoft. There's a lot of areas and investments in some of the leaders are pushing heavily on, let's do the good thing, but also getting it funded internally can be problematic.
But for my perspective, is not just doing the good stuff; it's also doing the business right.
Yep.
In terms of, if I'm going to the CEO of a company and telling him, yeah, it's everything good, it's everything integrated, you can integrate with Teams and everything else, but yeah, your actual security groups cannot be implemented.
True. Yeah, I absolutely agree on that. It's not just doing the good. It's the challenge here is quite simple. There's the dependencies between the different teams. There's so many organizations, and then making that kind of a decision to build that ground up, what you're basically asking, which makes perfect sense. 100% I agree that should be the way of doing that. It would have to be something which comes top down from Satya, and most likely that's not in the top of mind of Satya to get it top down fixed. There's so many other things which we need to fix before we can actually fix that one. But understandable, 100% understandable ask, and understandable thing to do. Now, we did run out of time.
Yeah,
we should have actually started asking these harder questions a bit earlier. But it's okay. It's okay.
But thank you. Thank you for joining us, Vesa. Yep. Thank you for sharing your open mind with us.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll be around in the corridors as well. If somebody wants to have a chat, I'm here as the open target for Microsoft. So feel free to ask questions.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
And remember to provide your feedback. Sì, adesso abbiamo il coffee break, giusto? Abbiamo mezz'ora o 20 minuti? Mezz'oretta di coffee break? Ok, quindi godetevi il caffè e ci rivediamo dopo.